Every person in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania lives within 72 hours of potential isolation, not from economic crisis or natural disaster, but from a single corridor being severed by forces stationed less than a marathon's distance away. This is the Troop Talk. Let's begin. The diesel engines cough to life in the pre-dawn darkness. 40-ton Leopard tanks grind their tracks against frozen Lithuanian soil as German crews check thermal sites. 30 kilometers east, beyond a line of birch trees heavy with frost, Belarusian T-72s sit in revetments that did not exist 3 years ago. The gap between them is 65 kilometers wide. It contains 2 major roads, 1 rail line, and the only land connection between the Baltic states and the rest of NATO. The geography is unforgiving. Kaliningrad to the west, Belarus to the east, Poland and Lithuania squeezed between them like a throat waiting to be closed. Russian forces in the exclave number approximately 12,000 troops, bolstered by Iskander ballistic missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads and reaching Brussels in 5 minutes. Satellite imagery from January 2026 reveals what analysts call the Kaliningrad monster, a nearly kilometer-wide container radar system, newly constructed ammunition bunkers, and a reconstructed nuclear weapons depot. A runway has been lengthened to accommodate supersonic bombers. SS-27 intercontinental ballistic missiles sit in storage facilities 64 kilometers from the Latvian border. The threat is not theoretical. In July 2023, over 100 Wagner Group mercenaries moved toward Grodno, just kilometers from the Gap's eastern edge. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki warned they would disguise themselves as border guards, facilitating migrant crossings or infiltrating directly. The mercenaries withdrew after 2 months, but the message was received. Moscow could place professional soldiers within striking distance of NATO territory without declaring war, testing response thresholds while denying plausible aggression. NATO's vulnerability here is structural. The alliance's Article 5 Collective Defense Clause requires consensus to invoke, a process that could take days while the corridor closes in hours. Current NATO doctrine demands preventing any territorial loss through impenetrable forward defenses, but the Gap's narrow geography favors the attacker. A 2-pronged mechanized thrust from Kaliningrad and Belarus could link up along Expressway S61 within 48 to 72 hours, creating a land bridge that isolates 3 allied capitals before reinforcements arrive. The Baltic states would become a strategic island, reachable only by sea or air under Russian missile umbrella. The response has been unprecedented. Poland's East Shield program, launched May 2024, represents the most significant border fortification in Europe since the Cold War. 10 billion zloty, approximately $55 billion, will fund 700 kilometers of defenses including anti-tank ditches, concrete dragon's teeth barriers, reinforced bunkers, and AI-powered surveillance systems. By February 2026, the first 3-kilometer section was completed ahead of schedule. Over 100 depots now store fortification materials in every border municipality, enabling rapid engineering deployment. The European Parliament has designated East Shield a flagship EU security project, unlocking potential funding from the bloc's EUR 150 billion defense loan facility. Lithuania is matching this urgency. In December 2025, Vilnius announced a major new training facility near the Suwalki Gap itself, part of a $285 million investment in military infrastructure. The country has pledged 5 to 6% of GDP to defense, becoming the first NATO member to reach the benchmark advocated by U.S. President Donald Trump. A domestic tank assembly facility will produce 41 Leopard 2A8 main battle tanks by 2030, ensuring armored repair capability independent of supply lines Russia could strike. Germany has crossed a historical threshold. The 45th Panzer Brigade Lithuania activated in Vilnius on May 22, 2025, marking the first permanent deployment of German combat forces abroad since 1945. By 2027, 4,800 troops and 105 Leopard 2A8 tanks will be stationed at Rudninkai, just 30 kilometers from the Belarusian border. Chancellor Friedrich Merz stood in Cathedral Square and declared that Germany would take the defense of NATO's eastern flank into our own hands. The brigade integrates the existing NATO Enhanced Forward Presence battle group, transforming rotational deterrence into persistent combat capability. This is deterrence by denial. The logic is simple. Make the corridor too costly to seize rather than too difficult to hold. The Baltic defense line, under implementation since 2024 by Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, adds another layer: bunkers, intelligent minefields, protected command nodes, and distributed sensors designed to slow any advance, while precision artillery and HIMARS strike from depth. In December 2025, Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia formally withdrew from the Ottawa Convention banning anti-personnel landmines, signaling intent to employ every available tool for territorial denial. The trade-offs are explicit. Static fortifications sacrifice mobility for resilience. The resources poured into border defenses, $55 billion for East Shield alone, cannot be spent on expeditionary capabilities or power projection. Germany's permanent brigade commitment reduces flexibility for other theaters. The military Schengen concept, enabling rapid cross-border troop movement, requires surrendering sovereign control over national territory during crises, a political concession that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Structural constraints persist. The Suwalki Gap contains natural choke points, dense forests, lakes, marshes, but these same features complicate NATO reinforcement. Poor road infrastructure and limited bridge load capacity constrain large-scale maneuver, especially in adverse weather. Russia maintains interior lines of communication. NATO must move forces across the continent. The warning time, according to German Chief of Defense General Carsten Breuer, may be as short as 48 to 72 hours. Recent exercises reveal the stakes. Defender Europe 2022 tested the movement of a combined arms battalion through the gap under simulated combat conditions. The lesson was logistical: pre-positioned equipment, host nation support agreements, and civilian infrastructure dual-use capabilities determine success more than raw firepower. The 2026 National Defense Authorization Act approved by the U.S. Congress includes $175 million for the Baltic Security Initiative, funding interoperability and readiness. Yet American commitment carries ambiguity. President Trump's 2024 statements questioning Article 5 obligations for underspending allies introduce doubt precisely where certainty matters most. Russia's Zapad 2025 exercises, scheduled for September, will be the largest joint Russian-Belarusian drill since 2021. Preparations include expanded training grounds near Polish borders, fording ponds for amphibious vehicle testing, and new missile storage facilities. NATO Supreme Allied Commander Europe General Christopher Cavalli warned in April 2025 that Russia is reconstituting its military at a much quicker pace than most analysts had anticipated, fielding a force larger than its pre-Ukraine invasion strength despite 790,000 estimated casualties. The scenario planners at RAND and the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments have modeled the opening hours repeatedly. Electronic warfare blinds sensors. Iskander and Caliber missiles strike command nodes. Mechanized columns push from both directions while paratroopers seize key intersections. The goal is not conquest of Warsaw or Berlin. It is creating a fait accompli, a closed corridor that presents NATO with the choice of costly counteroffensive or negotiated acceptance. The nuclear weapons stored in Kaliningrad serve as escalation insurance, deterring massive retaliation for limited territorial gain. Poland and Lithuania have responded with integration. Their respective 15th and Iron Wolf mechanized brigades now operate under a shared framework for gap defense, conducting cross-border exercises that test the joint all-domain operations doctrine. A new Polish-Lithuanian training area will allow brigade-level maneuvers across international boundaries, shattering preconceived notions about NATO's ability to mobilize rapidly during peacetime. The infrastructure improvements, better rail, expanded highways serve dual purposes: economic development and military mobility. The civilian dimension is equally transformed. Operation Horizon, launched November 2025, deploys 10,000 Polish troops to protect airports, railways, and bridges from sabotage. A mobile application allows citizens to report suspicious activity, integrating population into defense. The line between military and civil society blurs when the threat arrives disguised as migrants, cyber attacks, or infrastructure sabotage, the gray zone tactics that precede open warfare. Historical memory informs current posture. The Baltic states recall 1940, when Soviet occupation followed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact's secret protocols. They recall the 1944 to 1945 Baltic offensives, when Soviet forces exploited identical geographic bottlenecks to isolate German Army Group North. The Suwalki Gap is not abstract strategy. It is the physical manifestation of recurring vulnerability. the corridor that must remain open for sovereignty to survive. The question is whether transformation has occurred fast enough. The German brigade will not reach full capability until 2027. East Shield construction continues through 2028. Russia's military production, according to CSTO assessments, has shifted to wartime footing with expanded tank and missile manufacturing. The window of vulnerability, where NATO's defenses remain incomplete while Russia's capabilities grow, may extend through decade's end. What emerges is a new European defense architecture, permanent forward presence, territorial denial strategies, and the abandonment of post-Cold War assumptions about the improbability of major land war. The Suwalki Gap has become the testing ground for whether NATO can adapt from crisis management to credible deterrence, from expeditionary operations to homeland defense. The concrete barriers rising along Poland's eastern border represent more than engineering. They symbolize the end of an era when Europe believed geography had ceased to matter. The barrels will keep firing in training exercises. The fortifications will spread across 700 kilometers of border. The German tanks will remain in Lithuania, a permanent reminder that 1945 has finally ended. The question is whether these preparations can outpace the intent they are designed to deter, and whether a 65-kilometer corridor can remain open long enough for help to arrive.